Hey everybody, my name's Lynn Hayes. Welcome back to my channel where every week I give you all the astrological information that you need to have a great week. In today's video, I'll be talking about the astrology for the week of September 7th through the 14th, 2000. I'd like to start out with an update on the retrogrades. If you've been following this, you will already know. But for those of you who might be new, we have an exceptional number of planets that are retrograde in the sky right now. Now, what that means is that they appear to move backwards from our perspective here on Earth. Obviously, planets don't actually orbit backwards, but sometimes from our perspective, they appear to be turning in the sky, traveling backwards, and then they appear to turn direct again and move forwards. When planets are retrograde, and the average number of planets retrograde at any one time is 3 or 4 planets. If you have 5 planets, that's a lot of planets retrograde. Right now in the sky, we have 6 planets retrograde. And on September 9th, which is this week, we will have 7 planets retrograde, which is a tremendous number. I did a little research project. I went back into my book. Remember books? I have this great book, Tables of Planetary Phenomena. I don't even know if you can get it, but it's a really incredible book that has lots of different tables of all kinds of historical data. So I looked back in my book to see when was the last time we had 7 planets retrograde, or really even 6, because I include Chiron, and Chiron was only discovered in 1977. So there have been 6 or 7 planets retrograde at one time, but never for more than a couple of weeks. And right now, we have had 6 planets retrograde since the middle of June. So it's a tremendous amount of retrograde energy, and that's a very long explanation. But what that means is that our attention is turned backwards. It's very difficult to move forwards where there's a lot of energy that's pushing us back. And of course, we've seen this in the outer world with the virus and lockdowns and all of these things. The reason I'm bringing this up is that this week, Mars, which is the 7th planet to turn retrograde, will be turning retrograde on September 9th, which means that it's at a standstill in the sky right now as it prepares to change direction. It's especially significant because we also have 3 planets in Capricorn right now. Saturn and Pluto are traveling together, creating a lot of tension and some despair and some restriction and compression and oppression. And Mars is in Aries right now, and Mars is changing direction in the exact degree of a square to Saturn and Pluto. So there could be a lot of eruptions this week. Mars is the planet of drive and desire. It shows how we assert ourselves, how we express ourselves more aggressively. And when Mars is in its own sign of Aries, it is able to kind of master that powerful expression of assertiveness and drive, which is great for Mars, but it's less good when it's in a challenging square to Saturn and Pluto, as we see right now. So this will be in effect for the whole week of the video, and tempers are likely to flare. With this strong influence of fire in the sky right now, there is a tremendous amount of energy for purification. Fire is kind of a scary element, you know, when you have a fire in your backyard, a big bonfire. There can be some fears that it'll burn out of control, but fire is well known to have a purification effect. In most religions and philosophies, there is some sort of fire ritual to bring about purification. And so with this strong Mars energy this week, I think it's a very good time to do some internal purification. Some of us are very comfortable with Mars. We're very comfortable expressing our needs and getting angry where appropriate and speaking up where needed. But others of us are not as comfortable with that and not as good at that. And those are the people that I'm talking to right now. You know who you are. This is a very important time to check inside and see, are there needs that you haven't expressed? Is there something that you really need to happen in your life and you're being blocked and you have something to say about it, but you're too polite or you're too afraid of conflict? Mars is really here to teach us how to speak up and how to engage in conflict resolution in a way that's appropriate and empowering. And that's really the lesson of the Mars station, as we call it, because Mars is stationary in the sky right now as it prepares to retrograde. We also have Jupiter in a station in the sky right now. Jupiter is preparing to turn direct on the 12th of September, so it's also stationary in the sky. Now, Jupiter is in the sign of Capricorn, which is all about building something that's lasting. When Jupiter is in Capricorn, we have a desire to create something in the material world. We've been blocked from doing that with all this retrograde energy, and now Jupiter is going to turn direct, and that's going to mark the beginning of the end of this intense retrogrades. It will peak on the 9th when Mars turns retrograde, and then once Jupiter turns direct on the 12th, we start to move into more of an unwinding of the retrograde cycles. So while Jupiter is in a station in the sky, it's beaming this light of abundance and positivity. It's a very good time if you've been feeling depressed and if you've been feeling just kind of lost with everything that's going on right now. Jupiter is going to be up there reminding us that there is hope for a new adventure. So it's a good combination of planetary energies to start to make things happen. I know that a lot of astrologers, especially traditional astrologers, medieval astrologers, Hellenistic astrologers, give Mars a bad rap. Mars is a malefic planet. It's tied in with blood and war and some bad things. But Mars in our personal lives is very important. Mars is what motivates us. It activates us, inspires us. Without Mars, we would never have the energy to or the desire to really do much of anything. It's a great time to activate our Mars this week, and physical activity is one of the best ways to do that. This is not a good week to sit around and binge Netflix. Find something that you want to do physically. Go for a bike ride, go for a walk. Integrate this Mars energy into your body, into your system, so that you can use it for good. We do have some very favorable solar aspects, and I'll be talking about that in the section where I go over the astrology for the week. But because the sun is in Virgo and it's at the degree right now where it's beginning to align in a harmonious trine to the 3 Capricorn planets, Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn, we're going to have some solar assistance, which will help us in terms of integrating these energies into our day-to-day life. Capricorn is really about the material world, and there are certainly some changes that are happening right now that will change our life in this material world forever. So these solar aspects can really help again to bring a little more optimism, a little more positivity in the picture, which I think will be very helpful. So now let's talk about the details of the week. On September 7th, which is Monday in the United States where this is being filmed, the sun has already moved into position to form a trine to Jupiter, which is a very positive aspect of abundance and hope and positivity. And one thing that just keeps coming up for me over and over is that this is a time right now where we need to be thinking about the future, planning for what our lives are going to look like when we come out of this, when we emerge into a different world. What is important right now? What do we want to take with us? And these aspects on Monday, the 7th, are really going to help us to do that. And then on the 8th of September, the moon will move into the sign of Gemini at about 5:30 p.m., and that's Eastern time. Please adjust for your own locality. The sun is still moving into that trine to Jupiter, so the energies are still pretty abundant. With the moon in Gemini at 5:30 on the 8th, we'll start to feel much more alert on the mental level, much more interested in communication and language. It's going to be a very good time for writing, for calling a friend, for having conversations. On September 9th, the moon, which is still in Gemini, is going to align in a challenging square to the sun and also to Neptune. The sun is in Virgo and it's opposite Neptune, and now the moon is going to align in a challenging square. So when the moon squares Neptune, It's a highly romanticized time. We're very idealistic. There's a lot of imagination, a lot of potential for creativity. So when the moon is square to Neptune, it's a strong aspect. So it really activates the imagination of Neptune and it opens up the heart of the moon. Now, because it's so strong, that can make us sometimes not as discriminating maybe as we should be. The moon in Gemini is very open-minded because Gemini is interested in everything, doesn't really care that much about what's true and what's not true. It's just all fascinating. So this could be a day where there could be some illusion. It's not a very good day to make a decision that's going to have a long-lasting impact or anything involving something financial. This will only last for a day or so. And then later on the 9th, we have the exact trine from the Sun to Jupiter, which is kind of the peak of optimism. And Mars, of course, turns retrograde that same day. Also on the 9th, we see Mercury beginning to move into an opposition to Chiron. Chiron is the planet of wounding and healing, and when there's an aspect involving Chiron, often we are highly sensitive emotionally. Our feelings can be easily hurt. If we have any emotional reactions, they're closer to the surface. Now, this doesn't actually peak until the 10th, but for a day or two before, you may start to experience this. This could come in the form of memories or perhaps conversations that might be somewhat hurtful, or it could just be a time when we're more interested in ideas of healing and emotional transformation. And then on the 11th, the moon moves into Cancer around 4 in the morning Eastern time. When the moon is in Cancer, which it rules, it's the ruling planet. Obviously, the moon's not a planet, but we call it the ruling planet of the sign of Cancer. So the moon is very happy in Cancer. It feels safe, cocooned in the breast of the family. So it's a wonderful time for family gatherings, for connecting with people who we feel close to, especially at the beginning of this lunar cycle. As the moon moves through Cancer, it will start to oppose the Capricorn planets, which will be a little bit stressful. But that's going to be more on the 12th. On the 11th, with the moon just moving into Cancer, there's a sense of relief. There's a feeling of coming home. And we also on that day have the opposition from the Sun to Neptune. The Sun is in Virgo and Neptune in Pisces. And I talked about that. That's going to build for a couple of days. And that's kind of a dreamy, mystical, inspirational aspect. So this is a wonderful time where we can feel kind of emotionally free for that day or so. Then on the 12th, the Cancer moon begins to trigger some planets. First, it will form a square to Chiron, which is in Aries. When the moon squares Chiron, we can sometimes be more sensitive, hypersensitive, hyperreactive. So watch for that. I know when I'm having this sort of a cycle, I'll often say, why is my husband trying to hurt my feelings? When really he's not hurting my feelings at all, but my feelings are right there, ready to be triggered at the slightest impulse. So you might experience that too, and just know that Chiron is helping those feelings to come to the surface so that they can be released. Then once the moon has squared Chiron, it's going to move on to a square to Mercury, which is in Libra now. When the moon squares Mercury, we can be more emotionally reactive. Now, Mercury in Libra is very interested in being fair and balanced. This may not be as difficult as it could be otherwise. That this would not be a very good day to schedule any kind of important conversation. Fortunately, though, Venus, the planet of love and beauty, is moving into alignment, which won't be exact for another day or so. But Venus will be in a trine to Chiron, which adds more of a sense of love and beauty and harmony to this eruption of any wounds that might happen. Not everybody is going to experience this the same way. Now, later in the day on the 12th, and that will be the 13th for my friends in Europe. And my friends in Australia, I'm afraid you're on your own. You'll have to make these adjustments. But late on the 12th and early in the 13th in Europe, the moon is going to start to interact with Mars and with the Capricorn planets. That's going to probably create some stress. We already have the stress with Mars squaring the Capricorn planets, and then here comes the Cancerian moon, which is very sensitive, highly emotional. Now, the good thing is that these lunar aspects are very quick moving, 6 hours, maybe 8 at the most. So it's going to move through pretty quickly, but just know that this is a time where there could be a lot of emotional reactivity. At around 11:30 in the morning Eastern time, the moon will move into Leo. That's a lovely kind of lift where we shift into a greater sense of seeking joy. It's less about the emotions and more about what can I do that I'll really enjoy? What can I do that's really going to be fun? And let's not be afraid to have fun right now. It's very important for our mental well-being. In addition to the moon moving into Leo, we also have a harmonious trine from the sun to Pluto starting to build. Now, the sun has already been in a trine to Jupiter, which is very expansive and optimistic. Now the sun is going to trine Pluto, a trine being a harmonious aspect of support and encouragement, and Pluto, the planet of transformation. The trine from the sun to Pluto is going to be exact on the 14th. I expect that that will be a lovely day for pretty much anything that we want to do. So that takes us to the end of the week. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.